You've gotta run into the light.
I'm really loving starting with a vocal sample, whether I'm chopping it up and making it into a MIDI instrument or just using it in a drum rack like I am here.
So let's go over our first method of sampling, just chopping up, recontextualizing vocals. Gonna play around for a minute, find something I like. So that's one way that you can chop up vocals.
So going through all these samples, I found a couple that I liked, two that were in E flat minor, so that kind of dictated the key of the piece. So I used one sample and chopped it. You can see it's a pretty tight chop right there. Just the beginning of that sample, and the one right next to it is from the same one, but it's a little further down along in the sample. Notice on both of these I have the fade in turned up and the fade out. That makes it so it doesn't have that awkward little click at the beginning or at the end. And you can easily blend between the two. And then the other one was from a different sample where the singing's a little bit in a higher register. So different parts of the sample. Since these are tight little snippets of a sample and they have those in and out points, I like to put some reverb and some delay on them. So for instance, here's this sample, just dry. Since I am taking a smaller chunk that doesn't last very long, I like to add the reverb and the delay to give it some sustain so that it doesn't just sound like it's abruptly cutting off.
Sometimes I like to actually do real melodies that I play on a keyboard and then have each note be replaced by a different vocal sound.
Cool stuff. So it's playing through our sample, and this is essentially a keyboard, the Ableton Push, except I can fix it into a particular scale. So as I play it back at different notes, it's playing it back faster or slower depending on what note we actually press. So the key to this is if we can tell Ableton Sampler that this note, this sample that we're dragging in is A3, then Ableton will know if I was to press a note, say D3 or F5 or whatever other note I choose, it will know how fast or slow to play back that sample to keep it in tune and the right pitch for what we want. So what we need to do that is go to this really, really important root key. And this is where we basically tell the sampler what note is the sample we dragged in. It's as simple as that. So we'll click the down arrow a few times, or in fact the up arrow, till we get to A3, and there you go. Now, any note I press on this Ableton Push, which is basically a keyboard, will be the right note. And I happen to have fixed it in major pentatonic A, which is the scale I was using for this track. So all those notes will be in key.
But I needed something more of a drone. I wasn't really looking for the character of that. First thing I needed to do was transpose it. It's in A minor, I need to get to E flat minor. Those are 6 semitones apart. Then I went ahead and just stretched the heck out of it so that it was pretty much 8 bars long. But notice that sounds pretty mechanical, but when you drench it in reverb, this is kind of just like your basic stock reverb here with the dry wet turned all the way up, but the decay time turned up to 10 seconds. You get that lush sort of drone sound. The other thing happening on the track is this shaker sample. Plays every 2 bars. Now it is just a shaker by itself. But when you add in some delay, you get a little bit of a pattern.
So another way to sample vocals is to create chords. So real quick, the settings in order to play a chord You got to have your voices set to something more than 1. If it's set to 1, it's only going to play 1 note at a time. So I'm just going to set it to 6. The other thing is if you have glide on, you won't be able to do this. So if glide is on, it's just going to slide from the lowest note up to the highest note. So I'm going to have glide off for this. And now I can play. So I'm going to record on top of the pad that I already have. All right, so now it sounds pretty good. Might just use that and tuck it back into the mix. It's making my computer kind of freeze up a little bit because I'm capturing the screen and recording a bunch of crap. So I'm gonna freeze it real fast. So now I'm gonna see what all the different vocal chops I've done so far sound like together and get this overall kind of relationship between the different ways we've chopped up the vocals.
What it is an Ableton rack where you have a bunch of samplers stacked and you can switch between the different is find out what note you're actually playing. To do that, I actually grab the tuner device and see how when I'm playing a C right now on my keyboard, this is displayed as a B. So I need to change this root note until this tuner says C, and then I detune it until a C is a C. Now this is in concert tuning. So what you do is you do this as many times as you possibly can. You create a rack, you duplicate, you turn the one off, turn the next one on, or solo, and you find a different vocal and you do this. Go into the chain selector view. Now how the chain selector view is anywhere this blue selector is, if the track has its own little marker underneath the selector, that's the one that will play. Nothing's playing. This one's playing. So what you can do is you can set up a chain selector by stretching one out to the full value, right click, distribute ranges equally, so each of the 128 would have a different position. And now this slider will toggle between different sounds. Now what's cool is when you build up a big rack of this, and I'm going to quickly show you guys one, you end up with something like this. So ignore my effects rack because this is a completed one that I created a long time ago called the Cymatic Cosmic Vocal Rack. And if I slow this way down and I change the sample selector, each different position will pick a different vocal. So what's really cool is now you can create these patterns of different vocal sounds per note. So now we can both play melodies and switch out the vocal sample per note. I love it. It just becomes this really fun tool.